She'll never marry, not like her sisters. The most powerful Alpha King proved them absolutely wrong. I'm watching my sister marry the man who was supposed to be mine. Except, she's not walking down the aisle. She's in chains, and I'm the one wearing the crown. Here's what you missed. 3 months ago, I couldn't even shift properly. I was the family embarrassment, the broken one. While my sister Leclerc spent her entire life training to be queen, perfect hair, perfect manners, perfect everything, I was hiding in corners, trying not to exist. Then the Alpha King looked at her and chose me instead. One decision, one moment, and my perfect sister's mask cracked. What nobody tells you about stealing someone's destiny is that they don't just get mad. They get even. She framed me for witchcraft, planted a dark magic grimoire in my room, paid witnesses to lie, even cried in front of the council, playing the heartbroken sister forced to expose the truth. The performance was flawless. I was sentenced to trial by beast, face a feral wolf, prove my gift is real, or die trying. I survived. She didn't stop. While I was locked in a tower awaiting judgment, she made a deal with our kingdom's worst enemy, sold us out, started a war. Hundreds died because she couldn't handle being second choice. Now she's here, in front of me. The council is calling for her execution, and everyone's waiting for my decision. But here's the thing they don't know. I can feel her emotions. That's my gift. I sense what others feel. And right now, standing in these chains, knowing she's lost everything, she's not sorry, she's plotting. Because Leclerc isn't just my sister. She's a woman who spent her entire life believing she was owed a crown. And the most dangerous person in the world is someone who thinks they're the hero of a story where they're actually the villain. So do I show mercy and prove I'm better than her? Or do I give the kingdom the justice they're screaming for? Because here's what nobody's saying out loud. If I let her live, she'll come back for me. If I kill her, I become exactly what she accused me of being, a monster. Hey, beautiful soul, you found us, and we're so glad you're here. This is where broken girls become queens, where underdogs rise, and where love changes everything. If you've ever felt like you weren't enough, these stories are for you. Subscribe to join the pack, like if you're feeling it. Comment your thoughts. We love hearing from you. You're not just a viewer, you're family now. Welcome home. Moonveil, now let's get into the story. Chapter 1. The Gathering. Ardenfell, present day. In the ancient mountain kingdom of Ardenfell, where bloodlines decide destiny and strength defines worth, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a daughter without fire or fury must resign herself to a life unchosen, especially when overshadowed by sisters of extraordinary power. Miss Lisa Phelps, at 22, occupied that most cruel position among 3 daughters, neither the firstborn destined for greatness, nor the youngest celebrated for her prowess. She was simply the middle one, the forgotten, the overlooked, the one spoken of in pitying whispers that followed her like ghosts through the corridors of Phelps Manor. She'll never marry, not like her sisters. Poor Lisa, no mate has called to her wolf. Perhaps she's simply ordinary. What a shame. The Phelps bloodline has always bred such powerful alphas. That she was not entirely without gifts mattered little. Her elder sister Leclerc, at 24, dazzled the mountain courts with razor-sharp political acumen and beauty that could make even the hardest alpha kneel. Golden-haired and commanding, Leclerc had received no fewer than 7 formal courtship proposals from high-ranking wolves, each more powerful than the last. Her younger sister Scuggin, barely 20, burned with the kind of warrior spirit that legends celebrated. Dark-haired and bold, she had been inducted into the elite Moon Guard last season, an honor so rare that the entire kingdom had celebrated for 3 days. Scuggin could best most male warriors in combat and shifted into a wolf as black as midnight, as fierce as winter storms. And then there was Lisa. Lisa, who possessed neither sword nor seduction. Lisa, whose wolf was small and silver-gray, quiet as morning mist. Lisa, whose only notable gift was an empathic ability to sense and soothe the beasts within others. a talent her mother dismissed as pleasant enough for a healer's wife, I suppose. Not the makings of a queen, not even the makings of a notable match. She stood now in the shadow of a marble pillar in the great hall of Phelps Manor, watching the controlled chaos explode around her. Servants rushed past carrying armfuls of winter roses and silver candelabras. Musicians tuned instruments in the gallery above. Her mother's shrill voice cut through the cacophony like a blade. "No, no, no! The blue silk on Leclerc, you fool! It brings out her eyes! And where is Scuggan's ceremonial sash? She must wear her moon guard honors!" Lady Cordelia Phelps, a handsome woman whose own beauty had secured her marriage to Lord Phelps decades ago, believed utterly in the currency of appearance and status. She orbited her two remarkable daughters like a moon caught between two suns, basking in their reflected glory. Lisa might as well have been invisible. Lisa. Her mother's voice, when it finally acknowledged her, carried the particular tone of resigned disappointment. "Do try not to embarrass us, dear. Stand straight, blend in, and for the goddess's sake, don't speak unless addressed. We need Leclerc to shine tonight." "Yes, Mother." The words came automatically, worn smooth by repetition. "And do something about your hair. You look like you've been wandering the woods again." "I have been," Lisa thought, but did not say. The woods were the only place her gift felt like strength rather than weakness. The only place where the whispers couldn't reach her. "Yes, Mother." Lady Phelps swept away in a rustle of emerald skirts, already calling new orders to the servants. A warm hand settled on Lisa's shoulder. Her father, Lord William Phelps, gave her a gentle squeeze. Where her mother was all sharp edges and ambition, her father was soft-spoken kindness. But even his kindness carried the sting of lowered expectations. "There's my good girl," he said, his smile genuine even if his words were not encouraging. "Perhaps you'll meet someone suitable tonight. A kind beta from a minor house, perhaps. That would be perfectly suitable for you." Suitable. The word tasted like ash. "Thank you, Father." He patted her shoulder once more and moved away to greet arriving nobles, leaving Lisa alone with the truth that even her father's hopes for her were modest at best. The reason for tonight's elaborate preparations was the most significant event Ardenfell had seen in a generation. The Alpha King of the Northern Realms was coming to Phelps Manor, Cale of Varick. Even his name seemed to carry weight, sharp as a blade. At 28, he ruled the vast Northern Realms with an iron fist and had never lost a battle. Rumor said he shifted into a silver wolf larger than a warhorse, that his howl could be heard across 3 territories, that he had killed 12 challengers to his throne before his 20th year. Ruthless, unconquered, unmated. He was coming to Ardenfell seeking alliance against the rising threat from the eastern steppes, where Alpha Torvin had been consolidating power and making territorial claims that threatened the peace of all the mountain kingdoms. Every noble family with an unmated daughter saw opportunity. Lady Phelps saw destiny. "If Leclerc catches his eye," she'd been saying for weeks, "we could have a queen in the family. Can you imagine? The Phelps line united with Varick?" Lisa could imagine it. Leclerc would make a magnificent queen, beautiful, intelligent, politically shrewd. She would stand beside the Alpha King like an equal, commanding respect and admiration. Unlike Lisa, who commanded nothing but pity, the drums began as twilight descended over the mountains. Deep, rhythmic, primal. The sound rolled through the valley like thunder, announcing the approach of the king's procession. Every conversation in the great hall ceased. Hearts raced, breath caught. Lisa felt it too, a strange pull in her chest, something her wolf recognized even if she did not understand it. "Positions!" Lady Phelps hissed, dragging Leclerc and Scuggan to the center of the hall where they would be the first thing the king saw upon entering. Leclerc looked resplendent in blue silk that hugged her curves and set off her golden hair. Diamonds glittered at her throat. She held herself like a woman who expected to be chosen, admired, desired. Scuggan stood in her Moonguard ceremonial uniform, all dark leather and silver clasps, a sword at her hip. She looked like a warrior queen from the old stories, fierce and untamable. And Lisa. Lisa slipped behind a marble pillar, content to watch from the shadows as she always did. The massive oak doors of the great hall burst open. A rush of cold mountain air swept through, carrying the scent of pine and snow and something wild. The crowd parted instinctively, creating a clear path. And then he entered. Kyle of Varick was tall, taller than any man in the hall, and powerfully built, with broad shoulders that seemed capable of bearing the weight of kingdoms. His hair was black as a raven's wing but streaked with silver at the temples, giving him an otherworldly quality. But it was his eyes that commanded attention. Storm gray, sharp as winter ice, and carrying an intensity that seemed to pierce through every pretense. He moved with lethal grace, each step deliberate and controlled. He wore black leather and furs, a silver wolf's head clasp at his throat, and carried himself with the absolute confidence of a man who had never been denied anything in his life. The crowd collectively held its breath. Lady Phelps executed a perfect curtsy, her smile brilliant and calculated. "Your Majesty, you honor our humble house. May I present my daughters?" "Lady Leclaire Phelps," she gestured to her eldest, who curtsied with elegant precision, "whose political acumen and grace are celebrated throughout Ardenfell." Cale's gaze swept over Leclaire with polite indifference. "And Lady Scoggin Phelps, recently honored with induction into the elite Moon Guard, a warrior of exceptional—" But the king was no longer listening. His storm-gray eyes swept the great hall with the precision of a predator searching for specific prey. They passed over the assembled nobles, the decorated walls, the musicians in the gallery, and stopped. Complete stillness came over him, the kind of frozen moment before a lightning strike. Lisa felt the weight of that gaze like a physical touch. Her breath caught. She pressed herself harder against the marble pillar, but it was too late. He had seen her. "Who is that?" His voice cut through Lady Phelps's rehearsed introduction like a blade through silk. He was pointing directly at Lisa. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Lady Phelps followed his gesture, her expression flickering with bewilderment and something like horror. "That? Oh, that's just Lisa, our middle daughter, Your Majesty." She laughed, a brittle sound. "Surely you meant—" But Cale was already moving. He walked past Leclaire, whose perfect smile faltered. Past Scoggin, whose hand instinctively went to her sword hilt. Past Lady Phelps, whose mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The crowd parted before him like water, stunned whispers rising in his wake. He stopped directly in front of Lisa's marble pillar, directly in front of Lisa. She was frozen, her heart hammering so hard she was certain everyone in the hall could hear it. Up close, he was even more overwhelming, power radiating from him like heat from a forge, his wolf so close to the surface she could almost see it in his eyes. "You." His voice was rough, raw, filled with something that sounded almost like wonder. "I know you." Lisa's mouth went dry. "There must be some mistake, Your Majesty. I am Miss Lisa Phelps, the middle daughter. I'm certain we've never—" "Your voice." He stepped closer, his eyes searching her face with an intensity that made her knees weak. "I would know it anywhere." The entire hall had gone silent. Even the musicians had stopped playing. Cale turned slightly, addressing the crowd without taking his eyes from Lisa. "Bring me the girl who walks with wolves." His command echoed through the great hall, resonating with alpha authority that made every wolf present feel the pull of instinctive submission. I would know the voice that called me back from death. The silence that followed was absolute. Lisa's heart pounded against her ribs. Her sisters stared at her with identical expressions of disbelief. Her mother looked ready to faint. Her father's face was a mask of confusion. And the whispers began. "The king and that Phelps girl? Surely he's mistaken. Perhaps he's gone mad. What could he possibly want with her?" But Lisa barely heard them. She was drowning in the storm-gray eyes of the Alpha King, who looked at her not with pity or dismissal, but with recognition, as if he had been searching for her his entire life, as if he had finally found her. And in that moment, Lisa Phelps, the forgotten daughter, the overlooked sister, the unremarkable middle child, realized with terrifying certainty that her invisible life was about to irrevocably change. The Alpha King meant her, and everyone in the kingdom was about to know it. Chapter 2. The Recognition. Lisa did not sleep that night. How could she, when the Alpha King's words echoed through her mind like a prophecy she couldn't decipher? I would know the voice that called me back from death. She lay in her chamber, staring at the ceiling where moonlight painted silver shadows and replayed every moment of that impossible encounter. The way he had looked at her, not through her, as most did, but at her, into her, as if she were the only person in the crowded hall. The way his voice had roughened when he said, I know you? It made no sense. She was nobody. She had done nothing remarkable in her entire unremarkable life, and yet the most powerful alpha in the Northern Realms had walked past her dazzling sisters to claim her attention. The whispers had followed her all evening, even after her mother had hastily ushered her away from the king's presence, citing overwhelming emotion and the lateness of the hour. What could he possibly see in her? Perhaps she's bewitched him somehow. Poor man must be confused. He'll realize his error by morning. Lisa had almost convinced herself they were right when her chamber door burst open without warning. Leclaire entered first, still dressed in her blue silk gown, her golden hair slightly disheveled from what had clearly been an agitated evening. Scuggin followed, her Moon Guard uniform exchanged for simple training leathers, her dark eyes stormy with confusion. What game are you playing, Lisa? Leclaire's voice was cold as mountain ice, sharp with suspicion. Lisa sat up in bed, pulling her blanket closer. I'm not playing any games. Don't be coy. Leclaire crossed the room with predatory grace. You've done something. Said something. What did you do to make the Alpha King single you out? Nothing. I was hiding behind a pillar, trying to be invisible, as always. Exactly. Scuggin's voice carried a note of betrayal that cut deeper than Leclaire's suspicion. You, our sister who can barely shift, whose wolf is so quiet we sometimes forget she has one. You're not even a proper wolf, Lisa. Your beast barely stirs. And yet he looked at you like she was the only woman in the room, Leclaire finished, her beautiful face twisting with something ugly. It's unnatural. I don't understand it any more than you do. Lisa's voice rose despite herself. I've never even met him before tonight. Are you certain? Leclaire leaned closer, her eyes searching Lisa's face. Think carefully, sister. Your reputation, our family's reputation, hangs on this. If you've entrapped him somehow, with that strange empathy gift of yours, I would never... The door opened again. Their mother swept in, still in her emerald gown, her face pale with what looked like genuine panic. This is absurd, Lady Phelps announced to the room at large. The king is clearly confused. Perhaps the journey addled his senses. Or perhaps... She looked at Lisa with an expression caught between hope and horror. Perhaps he glimpsed you and mistook you for Leclaire in the shadows? Yes, that must be it. By morning, he'll realize his error and request Leclaire properly. Mother, Lisa began. You will say nothing about this, Lady Phelps commanded. Tomorrow, Leclaire will position herself where the king can see her clearly, and this entire embarrassing incident will be resolved. But Lisa saw the doubt in her mother's eyes, the fear that perhaps the king had made no mistake at all, and that terrified Lady Phelps more than anything. Sleep, when it finally came, was fitful and filled with fragmented dreams of silver fur and storm-gray eyes. Lisa woke to sharp knocking on her chamber door. Miss Lisa? A servant's voice trembling with nervousness. The Alpha King requests your presence for a private audience, immediately. Lisa's heart stopped, then began beating so hard she felt dizzy. She dressed hastily in a simple day gown of dove gray. Nothing like the finery her sisters wore, but the finest she owned. Her hands shook as she braided her hair. By the time she descended the stairs, her entire family had assembled in the entrance hall like an army preparing for battle. This is highly irregular, Lady Phelps was saying to the royal guard who waited with impassive patience. A private audience? Surely a chaperone? The king was quite specific, my lady. Miss Lisa Phelps, alone. Absolutely not. I will accompany my daughter. Mother. Lisa's voice was quiet but firm. I'll go. Lisa, you cannot possibly. I'll be fine. She wasn't certain of that at all, but something in her, that quiet wolf that everyone dismissed, stirred with certainty. This was necessary. This was meant to be. Have you ever felt pulled toward something you didn't understand but knew you had to face? Drop a comment if you've ever taken a leap of faith that terrified you. Lady Phelps insisted on accompanying her to the door at least, muttering about propriety and scandal, and the goddess only knew what the king was thinking. The guard led them through the manor's guest wing to a study that had been given over to the king's use. He knocked once, received a low command from within, and opened the door. The room smelled of pine, leather, and wild snow, scents that shouldn't exist together indoors, yet somehow did, as if the king carried the essence of his northern forests with him. Kale stood by the window, his back to them, looking out over the mountain valley. He wore simple, dark clothing today, less formal than last night's furs and leather, but no less commanding. His silver-streaked hair caught the morning light. Your Majesty, Lady Phelps began, I really must insist that propriety. Kale turned. His storm-gray eyes found Lisa first, held her gaze for a moment that stretched like eternity. Then he looked at Lady Phelps with an expression that could have frozen fire. Leave us. It wasn't a request. It was a command from an alpha so powerful that even Lady Phelps's wolf recognized the futility of resistance. But now, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Lady Phelps's protest died in her throat. She backed out of the room, the guard closing the door behind her with a soft click that sounded like a verdict being sealed. And then Lisa was alone with the Alpha King. The silence stretched between them, charged with something Lisa couldn't name. Kale studied her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. His gaze was searching, yes, but not invasive. It was as if he was trying to reconcile memory with reality. You don't remember me, he said finally. Not a question. A statement. Your Majesty, I'm certain we've never been formally introduced. Not formally. No. He moved away from the window, closer to her, and Lisa fought the instinct to step back. Not from fear, but from the sheer force of his presence. Do you remember a night, perhaps 12 years ago, when you found a wounded wolf on your lands? Lisa's breath caught. A memory stirred, distant, fragmented, like a dream half forgotten upon waking. She pressed her fingers to her temple. I was young, 10 perhaps. I wasn't supposed to be in the woods alone, but I often wandered. You found me. Kale's voice was rough now, raw with emotion he didn't bother to hide. I was in wolf form, bleeding, dying. The memory sharpened suddenly, painfully clear. A massive silver wolf, larger than any she'd seen before or since, lying in a clearing, blood matting its fur, eyes glazing with approaching death. She should have run, should have screamed. I should have been terrified. But all she felt was his pain, his fading life force, the desperate fight of his wolf to survive. She had knelt beside him, placed her small hands on his silver fur, and whispered, Please don't die, Silver One. Lisa breathed, the words coming back to her. Please stay. Don't leave. Please. Yes. Kale's eyes burned with recognition. Those exact words. Your voice, goddess, your voice was the only thing tethering me to life, the only light in the darkness pulling me under. Lisa stared at him, her world tilting. That was you? I was the crown prince, barely 16, caught in an ambush during my first military campaign. Enemy wolves left me for dead on your family's borderlands. He took another step closer. I should have died. By every law of nature and war, I should have bled out in that clearing. But you found me. You touched me. You spoke to me. and somehow, impossibly, you called my wolf back from the edge of death. I don't have that kind of power. Lisa shook her head, backing up until she hit the edge of a desk. I'm nobody. My gift is weak, useless. My sisters are the powerful ones. I'm just extraordinary. Cale interrupted her, his voice fierce. You are extraordinary, Lisa Phelps. Your sisters have strength and beauty, yes. They have conventional power that everyone recognizes and celebrates. But you have something far rarer. He was close now, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him and could see the flecks of silver in his storm-gray eyes. True empathic bonding, he continued. The gift of the silent alpha, the voice that commands without force, that heals without magic, that reaches the beast when all else fails. You didn't just comfort me that night. You didn't just offer me kind words. You connected with my dying wolf and gave it a reason to fight. Do you understand how extraordinary that is? Lisa's hands gripped the desk behind her. Her whole life, she'd been told her empathy was weakness, a consolation prize for lacking real strength. When I woke the next morning, you were gone, Kyle said softly. I searched the area, but I was weak, still healing, and my guard insisted on returning me home. For years, Lisa, I searched for the girl with the healing voice. I sent scouts. I followed every rumor of empathic gifts in the mountain kingdoms. I never stopped looking. But why? The question burst from her. Why would the Alpha King search for a child who showed him a moment of kindness? His expression softened. Because the Oracle told me, years later, that I would recognize my true mate by her gift. The voice that commands without force. The silent Alpha, who could still even my beast with a whisper. I knew then that I'd already met her, that she'd already saved my life. Lisa couldn't breathe. Your mate? I didn't come to Ardenfell just for alliance, Cale said. I came because my scouts finally brought word of a Phelps daughter with empathic gifts. I came to find you. The implications crashed over Lisa like an avalanche, the most powerful alpha in the northern realms, searching for her, claiming she was his destined mate. It was impossible. It was terrifying. I'm nobody, she whispered. I'm the daughter nobody notices, the sister everyone pities. My own family thinks I'm a disappointment. How can I possibly be everything? Kyle's hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. When she didn't, he cupped her cheek with surprising gentleness. You are everything I've searched for. Everything my wolf recognizes as home. Have you ever had someone see potential in you that you couldn't see in yourself? Comment below if this moment resonates with you. And if you're enjoying Lisa's journey from forgotten to found, don't forget to like. Your support means everything. They'll mock me, Lisa said, honesty forcing the words out. They'll say you've made a mistake. My own family thinks. A low growl rumbled from Cale's chest. Let them. I am the Alpha King. I bow to no one's opinion. But then his expression softened, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone with unexpected tenderness. But I won't force you, Lisa. If you wish me to leave, I will. If this is too much, too fast, tell me now. But I'm asking, and here his voice dropped, becoming almost vulnerable. I'm asking for a chance to court you, to prove to you that you are exactly who I've been searching for, that you are worthy of everything I can offer. Lisa's mind spun. Every rational thought screamed that this was madness, that she should refuse, should protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak when he realized his error. But her wolf, that quiet, overlooked beast, stirred with certainty. He knows us, her wolf whispered. He sees us. And Lisa realized she was tired of being invisible, tired of accepting everyone else's assessment of her worth, tired of living small because others expected nothing more. What if, just this once, she was brave? She swallowed hard. I don't understand why you chose me. I don't understand how I can possibly be what you need. But? Cale's eyes held both hope and patience. But I would like the chance to understand. The smile that broke across Cale's face transformed him. The ruthless Alpha King disappeared, replaced by a man who looked as if she'd just given him the world. Then we have an accord. He stepped back, giving her space, but his eyes never left hers. I will court you, Lisa Phelps, properly, publicly, and the world will see what I see. What do you see? She asked, genuinely curious. Strength that doesn't need to roar. Power that doesn't need to dominate. A woman who saved a dying king and didn't even know it. His expression grew fierce. I see my equal, my mate, my queen. Lisa's heart hammered against her ribs. She wasn't certain she believed him. Not yet. But goddess help her. She wanted to. Come. Cale extended his hand. Let me escort you back to your family. Let the courtship begin. She placed her hand in his, feeling the strength in his fingers as they closed around hers. The touch sent warmth racing up her arm, settling in her chest where her quiet wolf purred with contentment. They walked together through the manor's corridors, and Lisa felt the stares, heard the gasps and whispers. Cale's hand rested at the small of her back, a gesture of both protection and claim. At the entrance hall, her family waited. Her mother looked pale, her father confused, Scuggin uncertain, and Leclerc. Lisa glanced up to see her eldest sister watching from a window above, her beautiful face set in lines of such dark emotion that Lisa almost didn't recognize her. But Cale's voice drew her attention back. Trust me, Lisa, he whispered, low enough that only she could hear. The world will see what I see. I promise you that. As the Alpha King of the Northern Realms formally requested permission to court the forgotten middle daughter of the Phelps family, Lisa Phelps felt the first stirrings of something dangerous blooming in her chest. Hope. What do you think will happen next? Will Lisa's family accept this courtship, or will jealousy tear them apart? Drop your predictions in the comments. And if you're falling in love with this story as much as Cale is falling for Lisa, show some love with a like. Chapter 3 is coming soon, and things are about to get even more intense. Chapter 3. The Whispers and the Bond. The courtship began in earnest the morning after Cale's declaration, and it was nothing like Lisa had imagined. She had expected discretion, perhaps. Private meetings supervised by chaperones. The careful dance of propriety that governed noble courtships. Instead, the Alpha King courted her as if she were already his queen. Publicly, deliberately, and with an attention that made her the center of every conversation in Ardenfell. Tell me what you read, Cale said on the third day as they walked through the palace gardens while half the court pretended not to watch from windows and pathways. Your father mentioned you're fond of books. Lisa felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her back, heard the whispers that followed them like a persistent breeze. I enjoy histories mostly. And herbology. The medicinal properties of mountain flowers are fascinating, how certain plants can heal or harm depending on dosage and preparation. Practical knowledge. Kyle's hand rested at the small of her back as he guided her around a fountain. The touch was proper, appropriate, and yet sent warmth radiating through her entire body. Do you practice healing? Nothing formal, but I help in the village sometimes when the healer needs assistance with difficult patients. Animals, mostly. They respond to me when others struggle. Because you feel their pain. It wasn't a question. You connect with them. I suppose. They walked in companionable silence for a moment. The gardens were beautiful in autumn, all golden leaves and late-blooming roses. But Lisa could barely appreciate it through her awareness of the scrutiny. What does he see in her? She's not even pretty, not like Leclerc. Perhaps he pities her, a charity courtship. The whispers weren't even subtle anymore. Ignore them, Cale said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. They don't matter. But they did matter. They mattered because they echoed every doubt Lisa had harbored about herself for 22 years. The shared meals were somehow worse. Lady Phelps insisted on formal family dinners every evening, ostensibly to honor their royal guest. But Lisa suspected her mother still harbored hopes that Cale would come to his senses and notice Leclerc properly. Her eldest sister certainly played her part. Leclerc wore her finest gowns, positioned herself strategically, and engaged Cale in conversations about politics and territorial alliances, with the sharp intelligence that had made her famous throughout the Mountain Kingdoms. Your Majesty, surely you've considered that a marriage alliance with the Phelps family would be strengthened by a bride who understands the intricacies of mountain court politics. Leclerc's smile was dazzling as she refilled Cale's wineglass before servants could. I've studied every territorial treaty signed in the last century. I could be quite useful in negotiations with the Eastern Steppes. I'm certain you could, Cale replied politely, not looking away from Lisa, who sat quietly at the other end of the table, pushing food around her plate. And Scuggin, Lady Phelps interjected desperately, has trained with the finest warriors in Ardenfell, a queen who could fight beside her king. Imagine the symbol of strength that would project. Indeed, Cale said, his tone suggesting profound disinterest. His eyes never left Lisa. After dinner, as they took a turn about the terrace, chaperoned by a maid who stayed precisely 10 steps behind, Cale finally spoke about it. Your family is not subtle. Lisa managed a bitter laugh. They think you've made a mistake, that you'll realize it eventually and choose properly. Properly. Cale's voice carried an edge. Meaning someone like Leclerc? Leclerc is brilliant, beautiful, everything a queen should be. And what do you think a queen should be, Lisa? The question caught her off guard. Someone strong, someone worthy of standing beside a king, someone people will respect and admire. Someone nothing like you, in other words? The accuracy of it stung. Yes. Cale stopped walking. I turned to face her fully. You truly believe that? It wasn't a question, but Lisa answered anyway. Everyone believes that. My own mother can barely look at me without disappointment. Then everyone is a fool. His voice was low, fierce. Including you, if you believe it. The whispers from the court were crueler than her family's disappointment. Lisa heard them everywhere. In hallways, in parlors, even from servants who thought she couldn't hear. What spell has she cast? There's no natural explanation. Perhaps he pities the plain one, a moment of misplaced chivalry. She doesn't even shift properly. Her wolf is barely there. How can she be a queen? It won't last. It can't. He'll come to his senses. By the 5th day of courtship, Lisa began to believe them. Not consciously, perhaps. But the doubts crept in like winter frost, crystallizing around her heart. What if her empathic gift had somehow influenced him without her knowledge? What if she had accidentally trapped the Alpha King with the same power she used to calm animals? The thought made her feel sick. That afternoon, as they walked through the manor's library, one of the few places they could find relative privacy, Lisa finally voiced her fear. Your Majesty, Cale, he corrected gently. When we're alone, you call me Cale. Cale. His name felt intimate on her tongue. I've been thinking about what happened that night, when I found you in the woods. Yes, perhaps, she twisted her hands together. Perhaps you're mistaken about what happened. Perhaps you're confusing gratitude with something else. I have this gift, this ability to influence emotions. And what if I accidentally... Stop. Kyle's command cut through her spiral. Do you think I'm a fool? No, of course not, but... Do you think I don't know my own heart? My own wolf? His storm-gray eyes blazed with frustration. I am 8 and 20 years old, Lisa. I have ruled the Northern Realms for a decade. I have faced armies and assassins and political machinations that would make your head spin. Do you truly believe I cannot tell the difference between manipulation and genuine connection? I don't know. The admission burst from her. I don't know anything anymore. A week ago, I was nobody, invisible. And now the most powerful alpha in the kingdoms claims I'm his destined mate. And everyone thinks I've bewitched you, and maybe they're right. They're not. How can you be sure? Because, Kale said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to something raw and honest. You couldn't manipulate someone if you tried. You're the most genuine person I've ever met. It's one of the things my wolf recognized in you from the very beginning. Lisa wanted to believe him. Goddess, how she wanted to believe him. But the whispers were so loud. Have you ever had to choose between believing in yourself and believing the criticism around you? Drop a comment if Lisa's struggle resonates with you. The moment of clarity came unexpectedly, in the stables of all places. They had been touring the manor grounds when shouts erupted from the horse barn. Kyle and Lisa arrived to find handlers struggling with a young stallion, barely broken, wild-eyed with panic, rearing and striking out with deadly hooves. "Get back!" one of the handlers shouted. "He's gone mad! Something spooked him!" Even the shifters among the handlers couldn't calm the animal. Their dominant wolf energy only seemed to make the horse more frantic. "He's going to hurt himself," Lisa said, watching the stallion crash against the stall door. She could feel his terror like a physical thing, overwhelming, irrational, consuming. "Stay back," Kale ordered, one hand on her arm. "He's too dangerous." But Lisa was already moving. "Miss Lisa, no!" The head groom reached for her. She evaded him easily, her attention focused entirely on the panicking horse. She could feel it, the spike of fear triggered by something the humans couldn't sense. A scent, perhaps, a shadow, something that had activated pure prey instinct. "Lisa!" Kale's voice held command, but she barely heard it. She approached the stall slowly, hands open and low. The stallion's eyes rolled white, foam flecking his mouth as he reared again. "Easy," Lisa murmured, her voice dropping into that particular register she'd used since childhood, the one that somehow reached animals when nothing else could. "Easy, beautiful one. I know you're frightened. I feel it too." She reached for her gift, that empathic sense everyone dismissed as weakness. Let herself feel the horse's terror, acknowledge it, accept it into herself, and then, gently, carefully, she projected back calm, not dominance, not force, simply peace. "You're safe," she whispered, close enough now to touch. Her hand settled on the stallion's sweat-drenched neck. "I promise you're safe. Feel it. Feel the truth of it." The horse's frantic movements slowed. His breathing was still labored, but the wild panic was ebbing, replaced by cautious awareness of the human who smelled of forest and herbs and something indefinably soothing. Lisa pressed her forehead to the stallion's nose, still murmuring, still projecting that sense of peace and safety. The stables had gone completely silent. When Lisa finally stepped back, the stallion was calm, nuzzling her hand for treats she didn't have. She turned to find every handler staring at her with expressions of shock, and Kale, his eyes blazing with something that looked like fierce pride. "That," he said, his voice resonating through the stable. "That is your power, Lisa. Not dominance, not force, connection, understanding. The ability to reach a panicked creature when all other methods fail." He moved to her side, his hand finding the small of her back. "That is what makes you extraordinary. That is what makes you a queen." Lisa looked up at him, and for the first time she saw herself reflected in his eyes, not as she feared she was, but as he truly saw her. Strong, powerful, worthy. Words failed her. "I know," Kale said softly. "You're beginning to see it." That evening, they sat in the garden pavilion as twilight painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. For the first time, they spoke not of courtship or duty, but of truth. "Ruling is lonely," Kale admitted, staring out at the darkening mountains. "Everyone sees the king, the alpha, the weapon to be deployed or the power to be courted. But the man beneath?" He shook his head. "The man is invisible." "I understand invisible," Lisa said quietly. "I know you do." He turned to her. "That's why I can speak to you. Why did my wolf settle the moment I heard your voice again? For 10 years, my beast has been restless, Aggressive, dominant, always prowling for the next fight, the next threat. Being alpha means never letting your guard down, never showing weakness, never being anything but strong. That sounds exhausting. It is. His voice carried a weariness she'd never heard before. Until I heard your voice at the gathering, and for the first time in a decade, my beast was still, quiet, at peace. Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. My family never understood why I preferred the forest to court, why I'd rather talk to animals than nobles. They thought it meant I was weak, unsuitable for any real match. You weren't weak. You were building exactly the strength you needed. They simply didn't recognize it. The vulnerability in his voice matched her own. Two people who had been seen only for what they lacked, finally seeing each other for what they possessed. "Thank you," Lisa whispered, "for seeing me." "Thank you," Cale replied, "for seeing me too." Is anyone else emotional about these two finding each other? Comment if you're rooting for Lisa and Cale. The intimacy of that moment shattered 3 days later. News arrived via messenger. Alpha Torvin of the Eastern Steppes requested an audience, claiming he too sought alliance with Ardenfell against mutual threats. Lisa watched Cale's expression harden as he read the message. "His timing is too convenient," Cale said darkly. "Torvin doesn't seek alliances. He seeks conquests. You think this is a challenge?" "I think Torvin has heard I'm courting an Ardenfell daughter and wants to disrupt it. He's been trying to absorb these mountain territories for years. A marriage alliance between Varric and Ardenfell would block his ambitions." Lisa's stomach tightened with dread. 2 days later, Alpha Torvin arrived with a retinue of 50 warriors, far more than necessary for a diplomatic visit. He was everything Cale was not: loud, brash, carrying his dominance like a club rather than a sword. Where Cale's power was controlled and deliberate, Torvin's was wild and aggressive. The state dinner held in his honor crackled with tension. Torvin held court at the table, regaling guests with tales of his conquests, his gaze sweeping the room with predatory assessment. When those eyes landed on Lisa, seated beside Cale as honor dictated, something cruel flickered in their depths. "So," Torvin's voice boomed across the table, cutting through all other conversation, "the rumors are true." Silence fell. The mighty Cale of Varric has chosen a mouse as his queen. The insult hung in the air like poison. Lisa felt every eye turn to her, felt the weight of judgment, mockery, cruel amusement, felt Cale's rage ignite beside her like wildfire. His eyes flashed gold, pure wolf rising to the surface. A growl rumbled from his chest, low and deadly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as every shifter felt the Alpha King's fury roll through them like a physical force. Torvin was challenging him, publicly, through her. Kyle's hand moved to the table, claws beginning to extend as his wolf demanded blood for the insult. Lisa placed her hand on his arm. The touch was light, gentle, but through it, she poured every ounce of her gift. "Peace," she projected. "Calm. He's not worth it. I'm not hurt. You don't need to prove anything." The gold slowly faded from Cale's eyes. His claws retracted. His breathing steadied. The rage didn't disappear. Lisa could feel it burning in him, but he controlled it, mastered it, because she had given him the space to choose control over violence. The entire room watched in stunned silence, and Torvin's expression shifted from mocking amusement to sharp, calculating interest. His eyes narrowed as he studied the exchange, the touch, the instant calming, the power in her gentle gift. "How interesting," Torvin murmured, so quietly only those nearest could hear. But Lisa heard it, and recognized the danger in those words. She had just revealed her power to the one person who might know exactly how to use it against them. Oh no. Torvin knows about Lisa's gift now. How do you think he'll use this against her? And did you catch how perfectly Lisa and Cale complement each other? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you're on the edge of your seat waiting for Chapter 4, smash that like button. Things are about to get intense. Chapter 4. The Invitation to the Right. The great hall fell silent as Kael Vargrath rose from his seat at the high table. Moonlight streamed through the vaulted windows, casting silver shadows across the assembled court. Lisa felt every eye in the room turn toward them, toward her, as the Alpha King's voice rang out with formal authority. In 1 month's time, when the blood moon rises over Ardenfell, I will undergo the rite of moons. His words struck like a bell, reverberating through the chamber. Lady Lisa Phelps has agreed to stand as my chosen mate before the goddess and my beast. The shocked silence lasted only a heartbeat before chaos erupted. Lisa's hands trembled in her lap as whispers crashed over her like waves. She caught fragments impossible too soon she'll never survive, each one a knife between her ribs. Across the table, Leclerc's face had gone pale, her practiced smile frozen into something brittle and dangerous. Lady Phelps stood so abruptly her chair toppled backward. "This is madness. You cannot possibly mean to—" She turned to Lisa, her face flushed with mortification. "You can't even shift properly. You'll embarrass us all, get yourself killed, and destroy any hope this family has of—" "Enough." Lord Phelps's quiet command cut through his wife's tirade. He was looking at Lisa with an expression she'd never seen before, something almost like hope. "If the king sees something in our daughter, perhaps it's time we all looked closer." But Lady Phelps wasn't finished. "This is about bloodlines and duty, not sentiment. Leclerc is the right has been declared," Kyle interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The choice is made." Leclerc rose gracefully, her composure restored, but her eyes glittering with barely controlled fury. "How noble," she said softly, each word dripping with false concern. "But surely, brother, you understand the risk. Many alpha beasts have been killed during the rite when the mate bond was false. If the wolf rejects her—" She let the implication hang in the air like poison. "Then I trust the goddess to guide us," Kyle replied, though his jaw was tight. The formal announcement dissolved into arguments and speculation as nobles clustered in tight groups, their voices rising. Lisa felt the room tilting, the walls pressing in. She needed air. She needed— "Walk with me." Kael's hand appeared before her, steady and certain. She took it because it was the only solid thing in a world that had just turned upside down. They found themselves in a private corridor away from the din of the hall. Lisa pulled her hand from his, wrapping her arms around herself. "I can't do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll fail. I'll die, or worse. I'll humiliate you in front of the entire kingdom. Everyone already thinks I'm worthless. This will only prove them right." Kael turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his amber eyes made her breath catch. "You've already faced my beast and won. You just don't remember your own strength." "That was different. I didn't know what I was doing, you just saw me." He stepped closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from him, the barely leashed power that hummed beneath his skin. "Not the king, not the alpha, me. My wolf recognized that. He yielded to you when he's never yielded to anyone." Lisa wanted to believe him. Gods, she wanted it so desperately it hurt. But a lifetime of disappointment had taught her better. "And if I fail? If your beast tears me apart in front of the entire court?" "If you truly wish to refuse, I'll respect it." His voice gentled, and she saw the vulnerability beneath the royal bearing. "I won't force this bond, but I believe in you, Lisa, even if no one else does." The words cracked something open inside her chest. When had anyone ever said that to her? When had anyone looked at her with anything other than disappointment or pity? She thought of Leclerc's perfectly controlled fury, of her mother's mortification, of every time she'd been told she wasn't enough, would never be enough. She was so tired of being afraid. "I'll do it," she heard herself say. "Not because I think I'll succeed, but because I'm done letting fear decide my life." Something fierce and bright flared in Kael's eyes. "Then we begin tomorrow." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of training and transformation. Kale was a patient but demanding teacher. He took her to the ancient temple at the heart of Ardenfell, where the stone walls thrummed with old magic, and the air tasted of pine and moonlight. There, he taught her about shifter culture, the sacred bond between human and beast, the way the wolf was not a separate entity, but an essential part of the whole. "Your empathic gift is rare," he explained one afternoon as they sat in the temple gardens. "Most shifters can only sense their own wolf, but you felt mine. If you can learn to project that gift with intention, to reach out to my beast during the rite." He trailed off, but the implication was clear. It might be the difference between life and death. Lisa practiced meditation until her mind felt scraped raw, learning to sense the subtle currents of emotion that flowed around her. At first, it was overwhelming, a cacophony of fear and desire, anger and hope. But gradually, she learned to filter, to focus, to direct. And then there were the evenings when Kale would shift. The first time she saw his wolf in the moonlight, she understood why his people feared and revered him. The beast was massive, with fur the color of shadow and eyes that burned like molten gold. But as she sat quietly in the grass, projecting calm and acceptance, the great wolf approached. He circled her once, twice, his hot breath stirring her hair. Then he lay down beside her, close enough that she could feel his heartbeat, and released a long, contented sigh. "You're beautiful," she whispered, running her fingers through his thick fur. The wolf's tail thumped once in approval. Those were the moments when something shifted between them, something deeper than attraction or political alliance. In the quiet hours of training, Lisa began to see past Kale's crown and armor to the man beneath. A man who carried the weight of a kingdom on his shoulders, but still made time to teach her the names of the night-blooming flowers in the temple garden, who listened when she spoke, really listened as if her words mattered. And the way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she wasn't paying attention. The touches began accidentally, his hand steadying her elbow during a difficult meditation, her fingers brushing his as they walked through the garden. But they lingered longer each time, charged with an electricity that made her skin hum and her pulse race. The mate bond was growing stronger. She could feel it like a golden thread connecting them, pulling taut whenever they were apart, singing when they were close. But not everyone was pleased with Lisa's progress. Leclerc watched from shadows and corners, her beautiful face a mask of serenity that never quite reached her eyes. She made cutting remarks disguised as concern, dropped hints about Lisa's inadequacy where other nobles could hear. What Lisa didn't know was that Leclerc's machinations ran far deeper than petty jealousy. In the forest beyond Ardenfell's borders, where the ancient pines grew thick and dark, Leclerc met with Alpha Torvin of the Northern Wastes. He was a brutal man with scars across his face and ambition in his cold blue eyes. "The girl is winning him over," Leclerc hissed, pacing in the moonlit clearing. "If she succeeds in the rite, I lose everything." Torvin smiled, revealing teeth that were too sharp. "Then we ensure she doesn't succeed. I have connections in the council, nobles who owe me favors. We'll plant seeds, rumors of witchcraft, dark magic. By the time the blood moon rises, half the kingdom will believe she's ensorcelled their king." "And what do you get from this?" Leclerc asked, though she already knew. "Chaos. Kale's credibility destroyed, his alliance fractured. And in the aftermath, when Ardenfell is weak and leaderless, I'll take what should have been mine from the beginning." His eyes gleamed with predatory hunger. "Help me, and you'll be queen when the dust settles. I'll absorb your precious Phelps family into my house, give you the power and status you deserve." Leclerc hesitated only a moment. Then she extended her hand. "What do you need me to do?" The whispers started subtly. A merchant in the market square mentioned he'd heard the Phelps girl had unusual abilities. A noble at court recalled an old tale about empaths who could control minds. By the end of the second week, the word witch was being murmured in shadowed alcoves and behind closed doors. The council summoned Kale on the 20th day. Lisa wasn't present, but she heard about it from Scuggin, who'd been lurking near the council chambers. I wasn't spying, Scuggin insisted, though her guilty expression said otherwise. I was just concerned. The council members, led by Lord Blackmore, one of Torvin's staunchest allies, had demanded proof that Lisa wasn't using dark magic to influence the king's judgment. Some insisted she be tested before the rite, subjected to old rituals that could detect magical manipulation. Cale had refused with enough fury that his eyes had flashed gold, his wolf rising close to the surface. But the political pressure was mounting, and even the king couldn't ignore the council indefinitely. Lisa heard the nobles plotting 2 nights before the blood moon. She'd been unable to sleep, had wandered to the library seeking a book on rite traditions. The voices drifted from an adjoining room, low and conspiratorial. Disrupt the rite itself if necessary. Can't let him bond with a witch. Torvin says all we need to do is raise enough doubt. Lisa's blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing, as the voices continued plotting her destruction. The night before the blood moon, Lisa found Cale in the temple gardens. He stood beneath an ancient willow, his head tilted back to study the stars. The moon was nearly full, just a sliver away from its blood-red transformation, and its light painted him in shades of silver and shadow. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. "Too much thinking." She joined him beneath the willow's trailing branches, the space feeling intimate and separate from the rest of the world. "I heard nobles talking. They're planning something." "I know." His jaw tightened. "Torvin's influence spreads like rot, but they can't stop the rite. Once it's begun, it's sacred. Even the council can't interfere. And if something goes wrong?" The question hung between them. "If your wolf is at his most primal during the blood moon, and I'm not strong enough..." Cale turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. "Tomorrow my wolf will be at his most primal. If anything goes wrong, if the bond isn't true..." He reached out, his hand hovering near her cheek as if afraid to touch her. "I need you to know that I would never forgive myself. But I also need you to know that I believe in this, in us, more than I've believed in anything." Lisa's heart was thundering so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I'm terrified." "So am I." His admission shocked her, but we'll face it together. She thought of all the times she'd let fear win, all the years she'd made herself small and quiet and invisible. She thought of the golden thread that connected them, the way his wolf had trusted her enough to rest his massive head in her lap. She thought of the man before her, who'd seen something in her when no one else had bothered to look. "Then we'll face it together," she echoed, her voice stronger now. Something shifted in Cale's expression, relief and desire and a tenderness that made her chest ache. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the calluses on his palms. "May I kiss you?" he asked, and the formality of it, the respect even now nearly undid her. "Yes," she breathed. He kissed her like she was precious, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. His lips were soft against hers, tasting of moonlight and promises, and when she sighed into his mouth, he pulled her closer, one hand tangling in her hair, while the other pressed against the small of her back. The mate bond flared between them, golden and incandescent, and Lisa felt it settle into her bones like coming home. When they finally parted, both breathing hard, Kyle rested his forehead against hers. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he whispered, "know that you've already changed everything." Above them, the almost full moon sailed through clouds like a ship heading for destiny, and Lisa held onto him like an anchor in a storm. Tomorrow, the blood moon will rise. Tomorrow, she would face the beast and prove she was worthy, or die trying. But tonight, in this garden of moonlight and magic, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was meant to be. Chapter 5. The Rite of Moons, First Climax. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky. Lisa stood at the edge of the ancient stone circle, her bare feet cold against ground that had witnessed this ritual for 1,000 years. The ceremonial white dress they'd given her was thin as gossamer, offering no protection against the night air, or the eyes of hundreds gathered to watch her triumph or death. Silver fire blazed in a circle around the sacred ground, blessed by the moon priestesses to contain an alpha's beast and protect the crowd. The flames cast dancing shadows across faces both familiar and strange. She caught sight of her family in the crowd, her mother's face pale and pinched, Scuggin gnawing her lip with worry, her father standing solid and quiet. LeClaire was there too, beautiful and composed, but Lisa could feel the hatred radiating from her sister, like heat from a forge. She won't last 5 minutes. This is suicide. The king has gone mad. The whispers crashed over her, but Lisa forced herself to breathe. In and out. Steady. Calm. Like Kale had taught her. Kale. He stood across the circle, stripped to the waist, his skin marked with ritual symbols painted in ash and moonflower oil. His amber eyes found hers across the distance, and for a moment the crowd fell away. There was only him, only them, only the golden thread of the bond that hummed between their souls. He stepped into the circle of silver fire. "Remember," he said, his voice carrying in the hushed night. "You've already saved me once." Then the shift began. Lisa had seen him transform before, had watched the elegant flow of man to wolf in the temple gardens. But this was different. Under the blood moon's crimson light with ancient magic thrumming through the sacred ground, the shift was brutal and primal. Bones cracked with sounds like breaking branches. Muscles tore and reformed, rippling beneath skin that sprouted thick silver fur. Kale's scream of pain became a wolf's howl that echoed across the mountains. The crowd drew back instinctively, even safe behind the barrier of silver fire. The wolf that emerged was massive, larger than any Lisa had seen, with eyes that burned molten gold and lips pulled back to reveal fangs as long as her fingers. This wasn't the gentle beast who'd rested his head in her lap. This was something older, wilder, barely tethered to the human soul within. The blood moon had made him pure instinct and violence. The wolf's gaze locked onto her, and Lisa's every instinct screamed at her to run. What would you do in Lisa's position? Would you run, or would you trust the bond? The beast began to circle her, low growls rumbling from his chest. She could smell the musk of him, wild and dangerous. Could see the muscles bunching beneath his fur, preparing to strike. Around the circle, people gasped and murmured. Some looked away, unable to watch what they were certain would come next. Lisa's knees threatened to buckle. Her breath came too fast, too shallow. Terror clawed at her throat, begging her to flee, to scream, to do anything but stand here waiting to be torn apart. But then she thought of the wounded wolf in the forest, golden eyes clouded with pain, but still trusting enough to let a strange girl touch his injury. She thought of the boy who'd become a king while still carrying the weight of that child's loneliness. She thought of the man who'd looked at her, invisible, inadequate Lisa, and seen something worth believing in. "You've already faced my beast and won. You just don't remember your own strength." Lisa closed her eyes and centered herself. She reached for her gift, that empathic sense she'd been training for 3 weeks. But this time she dove deeper than ever before, past the surface emotions of fear and desire into something more fundamental. The place where souls recognized each other, where the bond between mates lived. She didn't speak, couldn't have made her voice work if she tried. Instead, she projected, sending her feelings out like a beacon in the dark. "I know you. I've always known you. You are fierce, but you are not lost. You are mine, and I am yours. Come back to me, Silver One." The wolf lunged. The crowd screamed. Lisa didn't flinch. The massive beast stopped inches from her throat, so close that his hot breath stirred her hair and his fangs nearly grazed her skin. He was trembling, every muscle vibrating with conflicting instincts. The primal drive to dominate and destroy warring with something deeper, something that recognized her on a level that transcended reason. Lisa opened her eyes and met his burning golden gaze. Slowly, so slowly, She extended her hand, palm up, an offering, not a command, an invitation, not a demand. "You need not fight what already knows you," she whispered. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then the wolf's growl faded into something softer, almost a whimper. The great head lowered, and the impossible happened. The massive alpha beast sank to his knees and pressed his muzzle into Lisa's palm. The crowd erupted in chaos. Shouts of shock and awe rang through the night. Lisa heard none of it. She was lost in the wolf's eyes, feeling the moment the bond truly snapped into place. Not the tentative connection they'd been building, but something complete and unbreakable. A golden thread that bound their souls so tightly she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. The wolf's form shimmered, and Kyle emerged, kneeling naked and vulnerable before her, his head still bowed to her hand. "My queen," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "My mate. My equal." The moon priestesses stepped forward, their voices rising in ancient song. "The goddess has spoken. The bond is true. She is the Alpha's chosen." Lisa felt it then. A ripple of power that spread from the circle outward, touching every shifter present. Their wolves recognized her authority, accepted her as their Alpha's mate. One by one, they began to kneel. First, the royal guard in their silver armor, then the nobles in their fine clothes, then the common folk, the warriors, everyone. Everyone except Leclerc, whose beautiful face was twisted with an ugly combination of rage and envy. But Lisa had no attention to spare for her sister. Cale had risen, wrapping himself quickly in the cloak a servant brought forward. Then he pulled Lisa into his arms, and the crowd's cheers washed over them like a wave. "I knew you could do it," he murmured against her hair. "I knew." Lisa clung to him, her legs finally giving out now that the danger had passed. He caught her easily, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. Through the bond, she could feel everything. His love, his pride, his relief, and beneath it all, his wolf's absolute devotion. It was overwhelming and perfect and terrifying all at once. The celebration began around them, music and laughter filling the night as wine flowed and the impossible became real. But Cale carried Lisa away from it all, through corridors that blurred together until they reached his private chambers. He set her down gently, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other. "Tomorrow," he said softly, reaching up to cup her face, "I'll make you my queen before all the realms. There will be a crown and ceremony, oaths and obligations." His thumb traced her cheekbone with infinite tenderness. "But tonight, you're simply mine." Have you ever had a moment where everything you were afraid of suddenly became the thing that set you free? Lisa rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into the press of her lips against his. Cale made a sound low in his throat, half growl, half groan, and deepened the kiss, his hands tangling in her unbound hair. The mate bond thrummed between them, urging them closer, demanding completion. When Cale lifted her and carried her to his bed, Lisa went willingly, ready to seal the bond in body as well as soul. His hands were reverent as he undressed her, pausing to worship every inch of skin revealed. "You're exquisite," he breathed, and through the bond, she felt that he meant it, saw herself through his eyes and finally understood her own worth. Their coming together was both passionate and tender, a claiming that went both ways. Lisa had never felt so seen, so cherished, so completely herself. Every touch sent sparks of pleasure along the bond, feeding back and amplifying until she couldn't tell where her ecstasy ended and his began. When they finally lay tangled together in the aftermath, sweat-slicked and sated, Lisa traced the ritual marks still faintly visible on Cale's chest. "I love you," she said, the words feeling both momentous and simple. Cale caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "I love you, my queen, my salvation." Outside the windows, the blood moon was setting, fading from crimson to silver to pale gold. The rite was complete, the bond was sealed. Lisa should have felt nothing but joy. But in the shadows beyond the firelight, she couldn't shake the memory of Leclerc's face twisted with hatred, or the cold calculation in Alpha Torven's eyes as he'd watched from the crowd. The rite might be over, but Lisa had the sinking feeling that the real battle was just beginning. If you're falling in love with Kale and Lisa's story, show some love with a like, and tell me, do you think Leclerc's jealousy will push her to do something unforgivable? What would you do if your sister stole your destiny? Drop a comment with your theories below. Chapter 6 is coming soon, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when Leclerc's plans come to light. Chapter 6. The Conspiracy. Lisa woke to sunlight streaming through silk curtains and the steady rhythm of Kyle's heartbeat beneath her cheek. For a moment, she simply lay there, marveling at the unfamiliar sensation blooming in her chest. The mate bond, warm and golden, pulsing with contentment and something deeper. Love, she realized. She could actually feel his love for her, constant as breathing. For the first time in her life, she felt chosen, cherished, powerful. Kale's hand traced lazy circles on her bare shoulder. "Good morning, my queen," he murmured, his voice still rough with sleep. "Not queen yet," she replied, tilting her head to meet his amber eyes. "A technicality." He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then captured her lips in a kiss that made her toes curl. 3 more days until the formal coronation. 3 days until the entire realm witnesses what I already know, that you were meant to stand beside me. 3 days. The thought should have filled her with joy, but something uneasy stirred in Lisa's gut. She pushed it aside, determined not to let fear poison this perfect moment. A sharp knock shattered their peace. "Sire!" Commander Reese's voice came through the door, urgent but respectful. "The council requires your immediate presence. There's been an incident at the eastern border." Kale's jaw tightened, and through the bond, Lisa felt his frustration spike. "I'll be there shortly." He turned back to her, cupping her face in his hands. "I'm sorry. Border skirmishes with the eastern steppes. It's been brewing for months, but the timing is—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Convenient?" Lisa finished quietly. She'd learned enough about court politics in 3 weeks to recognize machinations when she saw them. "You think it's deliberate?" "I think Torven has allies everywhere, and chaos serves his purposes." Kale pressed his forehead to hers. "Stay close to the palace today. Let Commander Reese assign you guards." "I'll be fine," she assured him, even as that uneasy feeling grew stronger. "Go. Your kingdom needs you." But as Kale dressed and departed, Lisa couldn't shake the sensation that somewhere, a trap was closing around them. In a darkened chamber on the opposite side of the palace, Leclerc stared at her reflection with eyes that burned with sleepless fury. She was supposed to be the chosen one. From the moment she'd first shifted, perfectly, beautifully, at exactly the right age, she'd known her destiny. She would be queen. She would unite the Phelps family with the crown. She would be everything her mother had groomed her to become, and then Lisa, pathetic, voiceless, broken Lisa, had stolen it all. With her helpless act and her convenient little gift, Leclerc thought viciously, dragging a brush through her hair with enough force to make her scalp sting, playing the victim until the king felt sorry for her. It's not real. It can't be real. But it was. She'd seen it in the stone circle under the blood moon. The way Kale's beast had knelt to Lisa like she was the goddess herself. The way every wolf in attendance had felt the bond snap into place. Undeniable and absolute. The thought of watching Lisa crowned as queen, of bowing to her younger sister while their mother looked on with reluctant pride, was unbearable. A soft knock at her door made Leclerc compose her features into perfect serenity before calling, "Enter." The servant who stepped inside was nervous, eyes darting. "He's here, my lady, waiting where you asked." "Good." Leclerc smiled, cold and sharp as winter ice. "Tell him I'll be along shortly." The meeting place was the same forest clearing where she'd first conspired with Alpha Torven. This time, he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, elderly, with a priestess's moon-marked robes and eyes that held nothing sacred. "Lady Leclerc," Torvin greeted with a predator's smile. "You look troubled." "I want her destroyed," Leclerc said without preamble. "The rite is done. The bond is sealed. We need a new plan." "Already prepared," Torvin gestured to the priestess. "May I introduce Priestess Morvain? She served in the Moon Temple until certain philosophical differences led to her departure." The old woman's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "The High Priestess lacks vision. She clings to outdated notions of sacred bonds and divine will. I see things more clearly." "Morvain will testify that she sensed dark magic during the rite," Torvin continued. "Lisa used forbidden arts to manipulate the outcome. We have other evidence prepared, a grimoire that will be discovered in her chambers, servants who've been convinced to provide damning testimony." Leclerc's breath caught. "A witchcraft accusation?" "Sire!" Commander Reese's voice came through the door, urgent but respectful. "The council requires your immediate presence. There's been an incident at the eastern border." Cale's jaw tightened, and through the bond, Lisa felt his frustrations spike. "I'll be there shortly." He turned back to her, cupping her face in his hands. "I'm sorry. Border skirmishes with the eastern steppes. It's been brewing for months, but the timing is—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Convenient?" Lisa finished quietly. She'd learned enough about court politics in 3 weeks to recognize machinations when she saw them. "You think it's deliberate?" "I think Torvin has allies everywhere, and chaos serves his purposes." Kyle pressed his forehead to hers. "Stay close to the palace today. Let Commander Reese assign you guards." "I'll be fine," she assured him, even as that uneasy feeling grew stronger. "Go. Your kingdom needs you." But as Kyle dressed and departed, Lisa couldn't shake the sensation that somewhere, a trap was closing around them. In a darkened chamber on the opposite side of the palace, Leclerc stared at her reflection with eyes that burned with sleepless fury. She was supposed to be the chosen one. From the moment she'd first shifted, perfectly, beautifully, at exactly the right age, she'd known her destiny. She would be queen. She would unite the Phelps family with the crown. She would be everything her mother had groomed her to become. And then Lisa, pathetic, voiceless, broken Lisa, had stolen it all. With her helpless act and her convenient little gift, Leclerc thought viciously, dragging a brush through her hair with enough force to make her scalp sting. Playing the victim until the king felt sorry for her. It's not real. It can't be real. But it was. She'd seen it in the stone circle under the blood moon. The way Kale's beast had knelt to Lisa like she was the goddess herself. The way every wolf in attendance had felt the bond snap into place, undeniable and absolute. The thought of watching Lisa crowned as queen, of bowing to her younger sister while their mother looked on with reluctant pride was unbearable. A soft knock at her door made Leclerc compose her features into perfect serenity before calling, "Enter." The servant who stepped inside was nervous, eyes darting. "He's here, my lady, waiting where you asked." "Good." Leclerc smiled, cold and sharp as winter ice. "Tell him I'll be along shortly." The meeting place was the same forest clearing where she'd first conspired with Alpha Torvin. This time he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, elderly, with a priestess's moon-marked robes and eyes that held nothing sacred. "Lady Leclerc," Torvin greeted with a predator's smile. "You look troubled." "I want her destroyed," Leclerc said without preamble. "The rite is done. The bond is sealed. We need a new plan." "Already prepared." Torvin gestured to the priestess. "May I introduce Priestess Morvain? She served in the Moon Temple until certain philosophical differences led to her departure." The old woman's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "The High Priestess lacks vision. She clings to outdated notions of sacred bonds and divine will. I see things more clearly. Morvain will testify that she sensed dark magic during the rite." Torvin continued. Lisa used forbidden arts to manipulate the outcome. We have other evidence prepared. A grimoire that will be discovered in her chambers. Servants who've been convinced to provide damning testimony. Leclerc's breath caught. A witchcraft accusation? I'll find whoever's spreading this poison and execute them publicly, Kyle growled, his eyes flashing gold. His wolf was close to the surface, enraged by the threat to his mate. No, Lisa said firmly, even though fear coiled in her stomach. Violence will only make the accusations seem true. We need to address this with transparency and calm. Calm? Kyle's voice rose, and she felt his fury burning through the bond. They're calling you a witch. They're questioning our bond. Then we prove them wrong, she insisted. But not with blood and terror. That's not the kind of queen I want to be. They argued for the first time, voices rising, the mate bond thrumming with conflicting emotions. But even in disagreement, Lisa could feel the underlying current of his love, his fear for her safety. Eventually, they found compromise, increased security, but no executions without proof. Investigations, but handled quietly. If only quiet could stop what was already in motion. Scuggin noticed Leclerc's behavior first. Her eldest sister had always been composed, but there was something different now, a brittleness beneath the perfect surface. Scuggin caught her sneaking out at odd hours, whispering with servants who had no business in the family quarters. "Where do you keep going?" Scuggin demanded one evening, blocking Leclerc's path. Leclerc's expression flickered, just for a moment, before settling back into cool disdain. "That's none of your concern." "It is if you're planning something." Scuggin crossed her arms. "I know you're angry about Lisa, but—" "Angry?" Leclerc laughed, sharp and bitter. "I'm protecting our family. Lisa has made us all vulnerable with her little performance. When this falls apart, and it will, we'll all suffer, unless someone has the courage to act." "What have you done?" Scuggin's voice dropped to a whisper, fear creeping up her spine. "What I had to." Leclerc's eyes were cold, distant. "You'll understand eventually. We'll all be better off when the truth comes out." She brushed past Scuggin, leaving her sister standing in the hallway with a horrible certainty growing in her gut. Something terrible was about to happen. Have you ever known something bad was coming but felt powerless to stop it? What would you do? Speak up and risk everything, or stay silent and stay safe? The formal council session was scheduled 3 days before the coronation. Lisa entered the grand chamber with her head high, Kyle at her side, trying to ignore the whispers that followed her like smoke. The council members sat in a semicircle, some faces friendly, others hostile, most carefully neutral. Lord Blackmore, Torvin's ally, called the session to order. "We gather to address concerns that have been brought to this council's attention," he began. "Concerns regarding the recent Rite of Moons and the validity of the mate bond." Kale's growl was audible, but Lisa placed a calming hand on his arm. Then Priestess Morvayn stepped forward, her moon-marked robes lending her an air of authority that made Lisa's stomach drop. "I witnessed the rite," Morvayn said, her voice carrying through the chamber, "and I sensed wrongness, dark magic, woven into the very air. The Alpha's beast was influenced by unnatural means." Gasps rippled through the council. Kale surged to his feet, but Morvayn wasn't finished. "Furthermore, evidence has been discovered." A guard brought forward an ancient book, its cover marked with symbols that made Lisa's skin crawl. "This grimoire was found hidden in Lady Lisa's chambers. The spells within matched the magical signature I detected during the rite." "That's not mine," Lisa protested, but her voice was drowned out by the uproar. More witnesses stepped forward, servants who claimed they'd seen Lisa performing rituals in the dead of night, muttering in languages they didn't recognize. Each testimony felt rehearsed, false, but the council members were listening with grave expressions. And then Leclerc rose, tears streaming down her beautiful face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking perfectly. "I didn't want to believe it, she's my sister. But I've seen things. strange things, and I can't stay silent when the kingdom's safety is at stake." She turned to Lisa, and the anguish in her eyes looked absolutely genuine. "Lisa, please, just tell the truth. Whatever hold you have over the king, release him. Don't let this go any further." The performance was flawless. Lisa felt the council's emotions shift, suspicion hardening into certainty. "This is madness!" Kale roared, and this time his shift began, bones cracking, eyes burning gold. But it was Lisa's voice that cut through his rage. Calm, clear, the same tone that had reached him during the rite. "Stop." He froze, trembling with the effort of controlling his wolf. Lisa stood, meeting the eyes of each council member in turn. "I'll submit to trial. I have nothing to hide." The chamber erupted in chaos. Kale grabbed her arm, pulling her close. "You don't understand what you're agreeing to," he said urgently, his voice raw with anguish. "The witchcraft trials are brutal. They involve tests, magical and physical, that could kill you even if you're innocent." Lisa looked up at him, and through the bond, she let him feel her certainty. "Then we prove them wrong. We don't rule by force alone, Kale. You taught me that." "The lady has agreed to trial," Lord Blackmore announced with barely concealed satisfaction. "Per ancient law, she must be held in the high tower until the trial concludes. No contact with the accused king." "I am not accused," Kale began, but the law was clear. The High Guard moved forward, not hostile, but implacable. Lisa watched Kale's face contort with helpless rage as they gently but firmly took her arms. "I love you," she said as they led her away. "Trust me. Trust us." Through the bond, she felt his love and terror warring, felt the exact moment the distance between them began to stretch the connection painfully thin. The high tower was cold stone and iron bars. The cell they locked her in was clean, but spare. A bed, a chamber pot, a single narrow window that showed the moon rising over Ardenfell. Lisa sat on the hard mattress, wrapped her arms around herself, and tried not to cry. She'd been so sure that surviving the rite meant the hard part was over. How naive. How foolish. Alone in the darkness, with the mate bond aching across the distance like a wound, Lisa finally let herself feel the full weight of her terror. Do you think Scuggin will find the courage to expose Leclerc? Or will she choose family loyalty over truth? Drop your theories in the comments. Chapter 7 is coming, and Lisa's about to face trials that will test more than just her innocence. Chapter 7. The Trial. 3 days in the high tower felt like 3 lifetimes. Lisa sat on the narrow bed, watching moonlight crawl across stone walls that had held accused witches for 1,000 years. She wondered how many had been innocent. How many had sat in this same spot, feeling hope drain away with each passing hour. The mate bond was agony. Stretched across the palace grounds, it ached like a physical wound. She could feel Kale's rage burning on the other end. A fury so intense it made her chest tight and her hands shake. He was barely holding himself back from tearing down the tower with his bare hands. Calm, she sent through the bond, projecting peace she didn't feel. "I'm safe. Be strong." She felt his anguish in response, the helpless fury of a predator caged by laws even a king couldn't break. The visits were brief, monitored by guards who watched for any sign of magical tampering. Lady Marin came first, bringing food that Lisa could barely touch. "Eat," the older woman commanded softly. "You'll need your strength for what's coming. The trial—" She hesitated, pain flickering across her weathered face. "The trials are designed to break the accused, but you are stronger than they know." Her father came on the second day, his shoulders bowed with shame. "I should have protected you," Lord Phelps said quietly, his hands twisting his hat. "Should have seen what was happening. Your mother, she means well, but her ambitions have blinded her, and Leclerc—" He trailed off, unable to finish. "It's not your fault," Lisa whispered, though part of her wondered if it was. Leclerc's visit came on the 3rd day. Her sister swept into the cell with perfect, practiced sympathy etched on her beautiful face. "Oh, Lisa," she sighed, reaching for Lisa's hand. I wish there was something I could do. If only you'd told us about your abilities, we might have helped you control them before they led you down this dark path." Lisa jerked her hand away, staring at her sister with dawning horror. Through her empathic gift, she felt it. Leclerc's triumph barely masked beneath false concern. Not a shred of guilt, only cold satisfaction. "You did this," Lisa breathed. "You planted the evidence. The guards are listening," Leclerc interrupted sweetly. "You should be careful what you say. Paranoid accusations won't help your case." She stood, smoothing her skirts. "I'll pray for you, sister. I truly will." As Leclerc left, Lisa felt something harden inside her chest. If she survived this, if she somehow proved her innocence, she would never forget the feeling of her sister's betrayal. The High Council chamber was carved from the mountain itself, ancient beyond measure. Ceremonial fires burned in bronze braziers, casting dancing shadows across 12 stone seats where the elder alphas sat in judgment. These were wolves who'd survived centuries, who'd seen kingdoms rise and fall, who were bound by sacred oath to judge fairly regardless of politics or pressure. Lisa was brought in chains. The iron shackles were tradition, every accused witch had worn them. But that didn't make them less humiliating. She kept her head high as guards led her to the center of the chamber, even as whispers rippled through the crowd of nobles permitted to observe. And then she saw Kale. He sat in the king's seat, elevated above the council, forced by law and tradition to remain silent unless directly addressed. But his eyes were molten gold, his wolf so close to the surface that she could see the beast in his rigid posture, his white-knuckled grip on the throne's arms. Their gazes met across the chamber. She saw his helpless fury, his terror for her, his love burning fierce and desperate. She tried to pour courage through the bond, tried to show him she could survive this. She wasn't sure she believed it herself. Have you ever had to face your worst fear while the person you love could only watch helplessly? How did you find your strength? Lord Blackmore stood, his voice ringing with false solemnity. "This council convenes to judge the accusation of witchcraft against Lady Lisa Phelps, chosen maid of King Kael Vargrath. The charges are grave. The use of dark magic to manipulate the sacred rite of moons and ensorcel our Alpha King." The prosecution began with ruthless efficiency. First, the grimoire. A guard carried it forward on a silk cushion as if the mere touch might corrupt. The ancient book was laid open to reveal pages covered in symbols Lisa had never seen, spells written in languages she didn't recognize. "This was found hidden in the accused's chambers," Blackmore announced, "concealed beneath a loose floorboard, wrapped in cloth to hide its dark aura. The spells within include compulsion, emotional manipulation, and forced bonding. Precisely what would be needed to fool an alpha's beast." "I've never seen that book before in my life," Lisa protested. But Blackmore merely smiled. "Of course you deny it. What witch wouldn't?" Priestess Morvain testified next, her corrupted moon-marked robes lending false authority to her lies. "I have served the goddess for 60 years, she intoned. "My sensitivity to magical currents is beyond question. During the Rite of Moons, I sensed wrongness, dark magic woven through the sacred ceremony. The Alpha's submission was not natural. It was compelled." Lisa felt the council's emotions shift, doubt creeping in where there had been certainty. The servant witnesses came forward one by one, each testimony perfectly rehearsed. They spoke of seeing Lisa in the gardens at midnight, muttering strange words while drawing symbols in the dirt, of finding dead birds arranged in circles outside her window, of hearing her speak in tongues while she thought herself alone. All lies, but convincing lies, delivered with trembling voices and fearful eyes. And then Leclerc took the stand. She wore pale blue, the color of mourning and sorrow. Her eyes were reed-rimmed as if she'd been crying for days. When she spoke, her voice broke beautifully. "I didn't want to believe it. She's my sister. We shared a nursery, played together as children. But Lisa has always been different. Obsessed with old magic, desperate to be special. A tear traced down her perfect cheek. I saw her with books of forbidden lore. I heard her muttering about power and destiny. I feared what it meant, but I hoped I was wrong. I prayed I was wrong. She turned to Lisa, and the anguish in her face would have convinced anyone. Please, Lisa, please just tell the truth. Whatever hold you have over the king, release him. Don't let this go any further. Don't let your pride destroy us all. The performance was flawless. Through her gift, Lisa felt the council members' emotions crystallizing into certainty. They believed. They actually believed. Liar, Lisa said quietly. You know the truth. You planted that book. Desperation makes the guilty say terrible things, Blackmore interrupted. The evidence is clear. Lady Lisa Phelps, jealous of her more accomplished sisters and desperate for status she could never earn, used forbidden magic to ensnare our Alpha King. The mate bond itself is a fabrication, artificially created through dark arts. Per ancient law, such crimes demand annulment of the false bond and execution of the witch. The chamber erupted. Some nobles cheered, others protested. Through it all, Lisa heard Kale's growl, a sound of pure anguish that made her chest ache. I will speak. The voice came from Commander Reese, who stepped forward despite Blackmore's glare. I have served King Kale for 20 years. I've seen him with countless potential mates, watched him reject bond after bond. What he shares with Lady Lisa is unlike anything I've witnessed. She has proven herself in leadership and wisdom, settling disputes with compassion and fairness. This is no ensorcelled puppet. This is a woman of genuine worth. Lady Marin rose next. The gift Lady Lisa possesses is rare but not dark. It is the blessing of the silent alpha, the ability to understand and communicate with beasts on a soul-deep level. My own grandmother possessed it. It is sacred, not profane. Common folk had gathered outside the chamber doors, their voices rising in petition. She helped my family, one man shouted. Settled our dispute fairly. Another voice. She's kind and good. This is wrong. But Blackmore silenced them all with a raised hand. Character testimony is meaningless when witchcraft is involved. The accused is clever. Of course she would seem benevolent while weaving her web. He turned to Lisa with cold eyes. If you truly possess this gift of calming beasts through natural means, prove it. Show this council your power without tricks or preparation. One of the elder alphas leaned forward. Bring in the feral. Lisa's heart stopped. She'd heard of the feral wolves, beasts who'd been so badly abused or traumatized that they could never be integrated into pack life. Violent, aggressive, often killed before they could hurt others. What would you do if proving your innocence meant risking your life? Would you take the chance or refuse and accept the consequences? If she fails, Blackmore said with false concern, it proves she used artificial magic on our king. If she succeeds, we'll know her gift is real. The trap was obvious. Even if Lisa succeeded, some would still claim it was witchcraft, but she had no choice. I accept, she said, her voice steadier than her hands. The doors opened. Guards dragged in a wolf, smaller than Kale's beast but no less terrifying. Its fur was matted and scarred, its eyes wild with madness and pain. Even muzzled and chained, it fought with desperate violence, snapping and snarling, trying to reach anything it could hurt. The council members drew back instinctively. This wasn't a wolf. This was a nightmare made flesh. Remove the chains, Lisa said. Silence. Then everyone spoke at once, protests and objections crashing over each other. That's suicide. The beast will kill her. Kale's roar drowned them all out. He surged half out of his seat before guards moved to restrain him, reminded him of the law. He couldn't interfere, couldn't protect her, could only watch as his mate walked toward death. Through the bond, Lisa felt his terror, his love, his desperate plea. Don't do this, please. But she had to. The guards reluctantly removed the chains and muzzle. The wolf lunged immediately, not at Lisa, but at the nearest council member, driven by blind fear and rage. Lisa stepped forward. She reached into her gift deeper than ever before, past the surface emotions of fear and anger to the pain beneath. She didn't just soothe, she understood. This wolf had been beaten, starved, tortured, had learned that everything with two legs brought agony, had survived by becoming a monster because monsters couldn't be hurt. "I know," she projected, her gift flowing out like light. "I know what it is to be hurt, to be called worthless, broken, wrong. I know what it is to believe you're not enough, that you'll never be enough. But you are not broken. You survived. And survival makes you stronger than they know." She spoke the words aloud, too, soft and gentle. "I see you, not the monster they made you. The wolf beneath the scars. You are not what they did to you." The feral wolf froze. Its wild eyes locked onto Lisa, confusion replacing rage. Slowly, so slowly, Lisa extended her hand, palm up. An offering, not a demand. The wolf approached cautiously, every muscle trembling. It sniffed her hand, and Lisa felt the exact moment the beast recognized something in her. The same pain, the same survival, the same determination not to let cruelty define worth. The wolf pressed its scarred muzzle into her palm and whimpered. Lisa sank to her knees, running her hands through matted fur, projecting nothing but compassion and understanding. The wolf leaned into her touch, its entire body shaking as if crying. And then something extraordinary happened. The peace Lisa projected didn't stay contained between her and the wolf. It rippled outward like waves, washing over the entire chamber. Council members gasped as they felt it. Pure, overwhelming compassion. Understanding. The kind of love that saw every broken thing and chose to heal rather than destroy. Even the hardest elders felt tears tracking down their weathered faces. "This is not dark magic," Lady Marin said, her voice thick with emotion. "This is the goddess herself, working through her chosen vessel." For a moment, Lisa dared to hope. She'd proven herself. Surely now. The chamber doors burst open. A messenger stumbled in. Blood streaked across his armor, his face pale with terror. "Alpha Torvin's forces are invading. The eastern border has fallen, hundreds of warriors bearing his banner. They're marching on Ardenfell itself." Chaos erupted. Council members shouted questions. Guards rushed to stations. Nobles fled for safety. Lisa understood immediately. The trial had been a distraction, occupying the kingdom's attention while Torvin positioned his forces, while Cale was bound by law and unable to command his army. Cale was already on his feet, his wolf surging to the surface. "Council is dismissed. I invoke wartime authority." "The trial isn't concluded," Blackmore protested, but Cale's eyes flashed pure gold. "My kingdom is under attack. The trial can wait." He moved toward Lisa, reaching for her, but guards stepped between them. "Sire, the law is clear. Until the verdict is rendered, you cannot have contact with the accused." Lisa saw the moment Cale considered tearing them all apart, law be damned. Through the bond, she felt his wolf howling to protect its mate. "Go," she sent through the bond, putting every ounce of strength into the command. "Protect our people. I'll be here when you return. I'll be safe. But they need you. Now. Lisa. Go." This time she spoke aloud, her voice ringing with a queen's authority. "I trust you. Trust me. I'll survive this, but our people can't wait." The anguish on Kel's face nearly broke her. But he was a king before he was a mate. Duty would always come first. "This isn't over," he said, looking not at her, but at Blackmore. The threat was clear. Then he shifted, the great silver wolf bursting forth, and raced from the chamber toward war. The guards grabbed Lisa, dragging her back toward the tower. Through the bond, she felt the distance stretching, felt Cale's wolf howling with every step that took him further away. The cell was colder than before, emptier. Lisa wrapped her arms around herself, trembling with reaction now that the adrenaline had faded. She'd proven her gift was real. But would it be enough? Or had Leclerc's web of lies already condemned her? The sound of footsteps made her look up. Scuggin stood outside the cell, her face pale but determined. She clutched a leather satchel to her chest. "I know what Leclerc has done," she said, her voice shaking but fierce. "And I'm going to prove it." "Oh my God. What do you think Scuggin found? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you're absolutely hooked on this story, slam that like button so I know you're ready for Chapter 8. Will Scuggin's evidence be enough to free Lisa? Can Kale defeat Torvin's forces? And what will Leclerc do when her perfect plan starts to unravel? Chapter 8. Drops soon, and I promise you, the confrontation between the sisters is going to be explosive. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. Second Climax, Part 2. What did you find? Lisa gripped the cell bars, her heart hammering. Scuggin's hands shook as she opened the satchel. I couldn't sleep after Leclerc's testimony. Something felt wrong. So I followed her. She pulled out a stack of letters, the seals broken. She's been meeting with Torvin for weeks, planning everything, the evidence, the accusations, the attack. It's all here. Lisa's breath caught as she scanned the correspondence. Leclerc's elegant handwriting detailed every step of the conspiracy. Torvin's responses promised her a crown and power. The final letter was dated 2 days ago. The trial will occupy them. Attack at dawn. By sunset, Ardenfell will be ours. We have to show the council, Lisa said urgently. This proves they won't believe me. Scuggin's voice cracked. I'm just the middle sister, the one nobody notices. And Leclerc, she's perfect, convincing. They'll say I forged these to save you. Then we make them listen. Lisa reached through the bars, squeezing her sister's hand. Together. The council chamber was chaos when Scuggin burst in, Lisa's guards struggling to keep up. Half the elders had left to organize defenses. Only 6 remained to render verdict. I have evidence, Scuggin shouted. Evidence of conspiracy. Lord Blackmore's face darkened. This is highly irregular. Read them. Scuggin threw the letters on the council table. Read them and tell me my sister is the traitor here. Lady Marin reached for the first letter, her expression growing darker with each line. She passed it to another elder, then another. The silence stretched taut as wire. Where is Leclerc Phelps? Lady Marin's voice was ice. Bring her. Now. Leclerc arrived minutes later, her composure perfect, until she saw the letters spread across the table. For just a moment, her mask cracked. I can explain, she began. But Scuggin cut her off. Explain how you sold our kingdom to Torvin, how you framed Lisa for witchcraft, how you orchestrated an invasion that's killing our people right now. Scuggin's voice broke. You're my sister. I loved you. How could you? Have you ever watched someone you loved reveal themselves to be someone you never really knew? How did you handle the betrayal? Leclerc's face twisted, all pretense of sympathy gone. She took everything from me. I was supposed to be queen. I trained my whole life, perfected myself, and she... Her voice rose to a shriek. She did nothing and got everything. It's not fair. Fair? Lisa's voice rang out from where guards held her. You had our parents' love, their pride, everything I ever wanted. But it wasn't enough. It's never enough for you. Ladies Phelps, you are both under arrest, Lady Marin declared. Leclerc for treason and conspiracy. Lisa, she paused. You are cleared of all charges and restored to your position as the Alpha King's chosen mate. No, Leclerc lunged, but guards seized her. As they dragged her away, she screamed, He was supposed to choose me. Me! Lisa sagged against the bars, relief and heartbreak warring in her chest. Through the bond, she felt Kyle, distant but alive, fighting with everything he had. I'm free, she sent. Come home to me. His response was wordless but fierce, always. But the battle was far from over. A messenger burst in, blood-splattered and gasping. Torvin's forces have breached the outer walls. The king requests... He faltered, seeing Lisa. The king requests his queen join him. He says, He says they need her gift. Lisa straightened, understanding flooding through her. Kale wasn't just fighting wolves. He was fighting compelled wolves. Shifters Torvin had forced into service through brutality and dark magic, and she could free them. "Take me to him," Lisa commanded, and this time, no one dared refuse. The battlefield was carnage painted in moonlight. Lisa raced through the gates on horseback, Scuggin and a guard contingent flanking her. She found Kale in the center of the chaos, his massive silver wolf tearing through Torvin's forces. But even he was flagging. There were too many. Torvin himself stood on a ridge, a cruel smile on his scarred face. "Your pet witch won't save you, Kale. This kingdom is mine." Lisa didn't waste breath on words. She reached for her gift, not to soothe one wolf but to touch every shifter on the battlefield. She felt them, the ones fighting for Torvin not from loyalty, but from fear and compulsion. She felt their pain, their desperation, their hope for freedom. "You are not his," she projected with every ounce of strength she possessed. "You are free. Choose." The change was immediate. Dozens of Torvin's warriors stopped mid-attack, confusion clearing from their eyes. They turned on their former master with howls of fury. Torvin's smile vanished. "No, you're mine. I command." Kale's wolf hit him like an avalanche. The battle ended not with a whimper, but with justice. "If you're screaming right now, hit that like button." What do you think happens to Leclerc and Torvin? And is Lisa and Kale's story really over? Or is there still one more twist? Comment on your predictions. Chapter 9 is coming, and trust me, the epilogue is going to be everything. Chapter 9. The Dawn of a New Reign. The sun rose over a wounded kingdom. From the high battlements of Ardenfell, Lisa watched the dawn paint the sky in shades of rose and gold, chasing away the long, bloody shadows of the night. The air was cold and sharp, scented with pine and the metallic tang of shed blood. Below, servants and healers moved through the aftermath, tending to the wounded and honoring the fallen. Kyle stood beside her, his human form restored, a heavy cloak wrapped around his shoulders. He didn't speak, but through the mate bond, she felt his bone-deep weariness, his grief for the lives lost, and an overwhelming tide of love and pride directed at her. "I can help," she said softly. He looked at her, his amber eyes full of a reverence that still made her breath catch. "You've already done more than enough." "Not for you. For them." She closed her eyes and reached out with her gift, not to command or compel, but to offer comfort. She sent waves of peace across the courtyard, a gentle balm to soothe the raw edges of trauma and fear. She couldn't heal their bodies, but she could remind their souls that the danger had passed, that they were safe, that the sun had risen on a new day. Kyle slid his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "They called you the broken one," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "But you were the one who healed us all." Justice came swiftly. In a formal court session held 2 days later, the fate of the conspirators was decided. Alpha Torvin's body had been recovered from the battlefield. His lands and titles were declared forfeit to the crown, his remaining forces swearing fealty to Kale to avoid annihilation. Lord Blackmore and the other treacherous council members were stripped of their ranks and exiled, their names struck from Ardenfell's histories. Then came the hardest judgment. Leclerc was brought before the court in chains, her beauty marred by a permanent scowl of defiant fury. Scuggin presented the letters again, her voice clear and steady this time, and a dozen freed shifters testified to Torvin's plan. The evidence was irrefutable. The council called for execution, the traditional punishment for high treason. But Lisa stepped forward. "No." The chamber fell silent. "What my sister did was monstrous," Lisa said, meeting Leclerc's hate-filled gaze without flinching. "She allied with our enemies and bathed our lands in blood for her own ambition. But Ardenfell is a kingdom of justice, not vengeance. To answer her darkness with more killing gains us nothing." She turned to Kale. "I ask the court for a different sentence. Banishment. Let her be stripped of her name and her titles, and exiled beyond the borders of this kingdom, to live with the consequences of her choices. Chaol looked at her, and through the bond, she felt his complete agreement. He saw the strength in her mercy. "The Queen's request is granted," he declared. "Leclerc, formerly of House Phelps, you are hereby banished. May you one day find the peace that your envy stole from you." As the guards led her away, Leclerc looked back one last time, her eyes boring into Lisa's. There was no remorse, only the promise of unending hatred. Then she was gone. After the court was dismissed, Lisa's family approached her. Her father embraced her tightly, whispering, "I am so proud of the woman you've become." Scuggin hugged her next, the bond between them renewed and stronger than ever. Finally, Lady Phelps stood before her, her face a mask of shame. "Lisa, Her voice broke. "I was so wrong. I was so blinded by what I thought our family should be that I failed to see the incredible person you already were. Can you ever forgive me?" Lisa felt the raw, genuine remorse radiating from her mother. It was a wound, but a clean one that could now begin to heal. "We can heal," she said, taking her mother's hand. "It will just take time." 1 month later, the great hall was filled not with the tension of a trial, but with the joy of a coronation. The kingdom was recovering. The shifters Lisa had freed had sworn personal oaths of loyalty to her, forming the foundation of a new Queen's Guard. Scuggin had been appointed as Lisa's chief advisor, her keen eye and fierce loyalty put to good use. When Lisa walked down the aisle, she wore a gown of midnight blue silk embroidered with silver thread that shimmered like moonlight. On her head, she wore no crown yet, but her unbound hair flowed down her back, a symbol of the wild, untamable power she now embraced. Chaol waited for her before the throne, his eyes burning with love. The high priestess raised her hands. "We are gathered not just to crown a queen, but to celebrate a bond forged in fire and truth," she proclaimed. "A bond blessed by the goddess herself." Their vows were not the flowery words of poets, but the solid promises of rulers. "My strength is yours," Chaol said, his voice ringing with power as he slid a simple silver ring onto her finger. "Your wisdom is mine," Lisa replied, her voice clear and confident as she placed a matching ring on his. "Together, we are one kingdom, one soul." Chaol lifted the queen's crown, a delicate circlet of silver woven like willow branches, with a single luminous moonstone set in the center. As he placed it on her head, a gasp rippled through the crowd. The moonstone glowed with a soft inner light, responding to her gift. "Long live the king!" the high priestess cried. "Long live the queen!" The entire hall roared in response. Later, they stood on the balcony, waving to the cheering thousands who filled the courtyard below. The mate bond between them was a warm, steady song of love, peace, and absolute certainty. "Happy, my queen?" Chaol murmured, his lips brushing her temple. Lisa leaned her head against his shoulder, looking out at the kingdom she had helped save, the kingdom she would now help lead. She thought of the lost, broken girl she had been, cowering in her sister's shadow. She thought of the woman she was now, a queen, a mate, a wolf in her own right. "More than happy," she whispered. "I'm home." He tilted her chin up and kissed her, a deep, possessive kiss that was both a promise and a prayer, sealing their future under the watchful eyes of their people and their goddess. They were not just a king and queen, they were a team, a partnership, an alpha and his mate, ready to face whatever came next, together. And so our story of Chaol and Lisa comes to a close. Thank you so much for joining them on this journey of betrayal, love, and self-discovery. If you enjoyed watching Lisa find her power and Chaol find his match, please hit that like button one last time. What was your favorite moment in the story? The right, the trial, the final battle? Let me know in the comments below. It's been an honor writing for you all, and I can't wait to see you for the next adventure.